Thank you, and thanks, Rick, for inviting me here. I'm already having a lovely time meeting students and talking about poetry. I'm gonna read for 20 minutes. I'm just gonna read a selection from the first book and A Question of Gravity and Light, and then maybe a few from the second book that's coming out in October. The first poem is or was inspired by the first documented murder on the island of Puerto Rico. It's a dramatic monologue written in the voice of a Taino Indian. The Given Account, Puerto Rico, 1510. They said they were gods, and we believed. They crossed uncrossable seas after all, in ships with sails like wings. But Salcedo is dead. Pacing river shallows, turning rocks, sifting sand for flecks of gold, he cut his foot on stone or shell, sending braids of blood downstream. Overhead, wind shook trees so leaves and light spilled in, catching a school of fish, a silver shimmer. I was there. Kneeling on the bank, I dressed his wound, pressing strips of cloth to stop the flood. But red spots seeped through the weave, my fingers wet with blood. His blood, no different from mine. He winced, his face paled by pain. But nothing changed. No dove, no cloud, no beam of light. And he a god or son of God? I, who came to drink, struck dumb by one thought, they bleed, they die, led him back into the pool and pushed his head below. His arms thrashed, legs kicked, lungs inhaled, mouths of water. He stopped. 3 days I stayed to see him stir, but he, not strongest, weakest, or cruelest of them, did not move. I pulled him out. He hung wet and limp and heavy in my arms. This man, almost too much to bear. A definition of terms. I should say it's a sestina for my students. A definition of terms. 1. Cruise, as in, I didn't plan to cruise anyone, a verb, slang, to seek a trick, usually at night, no connection to Tom Cruise, beloved actor and movie star. 2. Trick, a noun, slang, aka good love, one night stand, a verb, to have sex with someone of the same or opposite sex, the number of which often accrues with increased loneliness and lack of love. That's what we became, two potential tricks, that morning at the airport, co-stars in some fantasy, the story of two strangers, their flights delayed, waiting to board their planes. You watched me, you, a sexy Spaniard dressed in black, save the all-star tennis shoes, nice touch. Bored, I watched planes cruise the runway, drew the same geometric shape in my book, circle, circle. But I love the fear that comes with desire, and I love to be desired. So though I thought, no, it's too early, not a chance, I'm too tired to trick, and where the hell would we have sex anyway? Before long, I was the one cruising you, the idea of us, a fleck of light, a star growing brighter. I walked past you, staring at you with a smile as if to say, I'd love to get it on. Passengers and flight crews too busy fighting or sleeping or gabbing to see what we were up to, see us talking sex without talking. You followed me, we tricked them all. An hour later, I'm alone. My plane tricks the pull of gravity, taking me home, starward, as the ground grows and grows. The sex was great. a bathroom stall, a soft love grip, buckles, buttons, goodbye kiss, all too fast to forget, tender to confuse. 1, to cruise, to seek comfort in a body. 2, trick, the cruised, the lonely, the starved, sex between strangers who give and take this temporary love. A lot of the poems from this book are influenced by the Puerto Rican landscape. And though I didn't live there for an extended period of time, I would go every summer for about 3 months. And it was really kind of an Edenic childhood. And so when I think about that time, it seems almost surreal. And this is one memory that took place then during my childhood, though this wasn't one of the more positive moments. A ride in the rain. The driver has no knife. He has no knife, no, you think and lower your head into his car. A ride in the rain. The dark clouds bellow. You saw him drinking at the local bar, you think, and lower your head into his car. Rain taps the roof, falls on this familiar man. You saw him drinking at the local bar. He shrugs and offers up his empty hands. Rain taps the roof, falls on this familiar man, and sugarcane stalks bend in the breeze. He shrugs and offers up his empty hands. As sewer pipes burst, flooding the street, and sugarcane stalks bend in the breeze, machetes swing into the green stems, low. As sewer pipes burst, flooding the street, bile is a blade at the back of your throat. Machetes swing into the green stems, low. A ride in the rain, the dark clouds bellow. Bile is a blade at the back of your throat. The driver has no knife. He has no knife, no. I did not get in the car. So, all right. Hubble's Law. Before dawn, fishermen motor far into the open sea, the bay long dead, their lanterns lit. Meanwhile, in the plaza, the manicured trees strung with lights, the fountain and its expanding rings, the steeple, the brown plaster Christ. Yellow mountains rise in the background and the houses are sleeping. I sit at the window and think of a dock stretching in darkness, my hands, a net cast. It opens and opens wider, the weights never breaking the surface, never sinking. Beyond the pier, the lights disperse, each a star beneath the stars, a boat, a man drifting out. Okay, I'm sick too. The Battle of Nashville. I should say, where my partner and I live, we live on this absurdly steep hill in Nashville, and from it we can see Vanderbilt, downtown, even the river, I didn't know this when I moved to Nashville. There was a great civil rights movement there, and there was one particularly famous sit-in at the Cress building, so there's mention of that here. The Battle of Nashville. Snow gives the sky a new dimension, depth, a soft glow, as if the air lit the yard, which slopes to the city which shimmers. The river is always moving, but the atrium on Fifth, the Cress, where blacks locked arms and would not budge. A plow takes the hill, where cars line up in rows and half-built lofts replace the houses. The man who built our house built diesel engines and kept the trucks he couldn't fix. His daughters sold it all, except the how-to books, the shop fan he left in the attic. We're not brave, but we find each other in bed at night, your hand or my hand reaching out. In the morning, you take the trash, I make the coffee. Nearby, battles were fought, and men whose wives waited for them died. If soldiers held the highest ground, one stood here. If there is one, there is at least one more. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they share a blanket as snow settles in the trees. I think they are afraid. I think this is love. Okay. All right, I'm going to read a few poems from my second collection. And this was inspired by our son's adoption in 2008. The first poems I want to read are really companion poems that try and capture that moment when you're not sure if the adoption is going to go through. It seems like all the planets need to be aligned, and it's a wonder to me how anyone is able to do something as courageous as give a child up for adoption. So it seems a mystery that it ever happens. But anyway, these two companion poems first present the adopting parents' perspective when things start to unravel, and then the birth mother's perspective. In medias res. At 6 months, the embryo can hear its eyes close and open on the crease, fingernails, and hair. We tape green swatches to the wall and settle on a name, though that too will change. Dogs whine and claw the door. Each day calls for rain. We wonder the face, the weight, the size of his swaddled frame. Standing on the curb at dusk, I sweep my hand through the mailbox built in the shape of a birdhouse. Among clover and chickweed, it lies slumped over a mound of feather, breaking down to jointed bone. Fireflies hover through the empty field in the absence of light and hunger, without news or song. Another point of view. Think of her trip outside the city, months of hiding, a room so small she crammed the mattress in and left the box spring on the street. She lay there while the world pulsed against her window, a stoplight on its timer, cars braking, a song she'd like to sing, fading out. At night, she dreamt a bubble born from her open mouth. No, she said to the dark, and the word floated up, so even the air belonged to her. Let me see. I'm going to read the title poem, The Foundling Wheel. It comes with a note, which I will find here. The Foundling Wheel. The first Foundling Wheel, a rotating platform, dates from 1198. It was installed in the wall of the Santo Spirito Hospital near the Vatican on orders from Pope Innocent III. He'd been dismayed by the number of newborns found caught in the nets of fishermen on the Tiber River. The Foundling Wheel. 1. They swept the river, caught the dead in nets. Then a wheel with a box let someone leave a child. As boats sway beneath the wall, their loose cords swing and clank the hollow masts, so the masts call out like dulled bells. At low tide, their hulls lie in mud. A mother rolls her stroller back and forth, looking at the rain. My mind drifts at night the current rising on the bank, the sound of water splashing from the roof. The blue curtain glows at dawn. I hear the gulls and don't sleep well. 2. The one who set her son adrift must have stood among the reeds as long she could. The hand that throws the stone recalls its weight. A father's body changes too on a molecular level, a small disturbance among fallen leaves, a soft thud. A stream of light at dawn, the bells ring and ring, the world's wheel turning toward this, the 6th day of October. The child sleeps beside our bed, and you make toast with red plum jam. I think I'll read 2 more. Excuse me. A warm day in winter. The leash looped around my wrist. We stopped to let the dog piss across a trunk, the branches stark this late in winter. Though everyone is out, spreading blankets on the grass, eating with plastic forks. We amble across the park without purpose or direction, our wheels pausing at stick and stone. Before we jostle on, your eyes attuned to every first, fixed upon the few leaves above, withered but holding. You flail your fists at the small sky, the brief light it carries. Tomorrow the cold will rush back into the city, and neither you nor the dog will understand or remember, though you might respond cheerfully, not knowing why, when we return one day in spring. I try to see as you, without likeness or memory, as I did the night that you were born. Before, I couldn't guess your complexion, the color of your eyes, the mark that spread across your back like a map of the world. I told myself it was because you didn't come from me, but Mother says it was the same for her. At once the thought became the form, as in the myth, the woman springs from her father's head, your face determined in its particulars, the forehead's frown beneath lamps that kept you warm, the hoarse cry as you expelled the first breaths of air. So in my arms at last, I didn't know you, but looked in wonder all the same, noting how little you weighed. You will not recall any of this, of course, which seems a shame when you are older. How I fed you through the late hours in a room sterile and cold, but for paintings of landscapes much like this one, or how we walked along the row of trees, avoiding roots that surfaced, and stopped a while beneath an elm on a warm December day. And I will finish up. Thank you so much for your attention. And thanks again, Rick, for having me. Lighter. Almost. Lighter. The word that comes to mind after many nights, as when a plane descends over a city you call home, the bodies rise against the belt, strung across your lap. Darkness and lampposts, like gold and silver beads below, falling into them, or better yet, wading in the bioluminescent bay, and each kick creates a soft glow. Each stroke makes you think light could come from the body and not a world disturbed into brilliance. Because it captures what I mean, both the weight and how you see what you could not, as when I heard him cry and lumbered down the hall to find you there first, pacing the room, singing in his ear. Through the window the city sparkled and seemed to have grown, though by day I never see more than 2 or 3 men working at once, lifting together, say, a plank of wood. Years ago, my mother sat beside my bed, eager to bear the fever with me. We pass him back and forth between us till it breaks, and I no longer want what I wanted before, as when one day you look upon the house you've built and can't recall the field. Thank you very much.